To start off with, there's a couple of bits of breaking news surrounding Man United. And the first bit is that Erik ten Hag is very close to agreeing his new deal at the football club.
I mean, listen, I don't know how happy Man United fans are about this, to be fair. There's some Man United fans I speak to that are really disappointed that Ten Hag's staying. And there's others that are like, do you know what? I'm cool with it. And there's some that like literally don't know how to think. I don't know where you're at, Tel, but there's a couple of good mates of mine that are Man United that I listen to and respect their opinions on football. And they're like, do you know what? I went from I really want him out to, oh my God, who the hell are we linked with? To, do you know what? Let's just see how it works then. And I think that's where they're at now. They're like, I don't want Southgate. I don't want De Zerbi. I don't want Tuchel and all these names who have been thrown at. And do you know what? Let's just see how good this new structure is. Because there's a lot of people that haven't really thought about what Ten Hag can do with 100% backing. Now, I'm not saying that Ten Hag's not been backed because he's got players that he's wanted over from Ajax. But there was no real clear structural plan in place at Manchester United in the reign of Ten Hag. And he has won 2 trophies. We can't deny that. That's just facts. So I've never seen amazing football and I still don't quite understand the style of play. So that's on Ten Hag. And I think for me, what I'm more interested to see is how much of this is, oh my God, Ten Hag is shocking. And how much of this is, well, actually, if you give him a bit of structure, he ain't actually that bad. And I think we're going to find that out pretty quickly, in my opinion. So
I agree. People, I've had a lot of people. I spoke about. There's a comment that Sir Jim Ratcliffe made at the weekend, and I quote tweeted it, and he said words to the effect of that he was questioned, why have you kept Ten Hag? And he sort of his first response was, no, the question was, how comes you stuck with the manager? And he went, who? Erik? Right? And they went, yeah. It was a bit of like an awkward moment. He said, because he's a good coach. And then it was this like silence for a moment from the audience watching. And then the interviewer said, okay, but he had a bad year last year. He said, yeah. He said, but Man United have had 7 managers on the bounce that have all failed. So our reviewers essentially told us that it isn't really the manager that's the issue. It's deeper lying problems at the club, which I have to be very careful when I listen to that, because you could definitely argue it's confirmation bias for me, because that's quite literally what I've been saying every time we've wanted the manager sacked since Moyes, really, that when we're looking at the low-hanging fruit, we're looking at the very visible, easy-to-understand problem, as opposed to digging a lot deeper into the football club. Why I'm happy about this listen, I wanted him to be removed because my theory was if you remove everything, it's quicker to rebuild. However, what I also said, which the Ten Hag inners seem to have ignored, is if Sir Jim and the new board deem it to be the right decision to keep him, I am going to get behind that. But the new deal coming this quickly, I think, is really important, because it's only really a new deal to change his job title. Essentially, he's no longer going to be the manager of Man United. He's going to be the head coach. He's going to have his veto taken away from him. And even with the likes of Ruud van Nistelrooy coming in as part of his coaching staff, I believe that is partly his input, but also the club. And I think it's a really shrewd appointment, understands the football club. And I do think having people at your club that understand people sometimes get annoyed at jobs for boys. And then you look at all the clubs around the world that are well run, especially on the continent, and you start looking at their board, or you start looking at people that are in and around that changing room. The amount of ex-pros that are at these top clubs that play for that club is staggering. And I think Man United have missed a trick on that for years. Ruud's also a manager, done very well in his fledgling career, offered the Burnley job, but looks like he's going to come in as our new assistant manager. And I think we need a little bit of that. I think we need a little bit of young, enthusiastic energy. I love Steve McLaren for what he's done for Man United in the past and that type, but I almost feel like they're a little bit old hat now. We need to bring in somebody new and somebody innovative in that way. So I'm happy that we're getting it done quickly, because there was talk that this new deal wouldn't start negotiations until next season, which I felt was weird. So I think they're restructuring his job. And look, for me, it's a case of I want him to do well because I want Man United to succeed. I have no ill feeling towards Ten Hag. I don't care about my personal opinion not being followed by the club, because I just find that to be an absolutely arrogant way to live. I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram because I didn't do all the things I wanted. I've got some of what I wanted. Some bits I'm unsure on. Some bits I'm going to question, but I'm going to give it some time to cook. So, look, I'm happy the new deal's getting done. I think the players look relieved by it. And look, we're linked to some really decent players at the minute. We're working on a deal for Xerxes, which we'll get to. We're about to put a second bid in for Branthwaite. That comes just after Ornstein has said that Everton have got to sell players and quickly in the next 5 days. I've got a feeling we could bring Branthwaite in. And it's been reported by L'Equipe in Paris today that Man United have put an opening offer in for Manuel Ugarte, who is very heavily linked to Chelsea last year, very talented midfield player. Hasn't quite worked out for him at Paris Saint-Germain, but it's a player that was on Man United's list last year that we didn't get. So I'm looking at the players we're linked to, the players we're trying to buy. Everything my new owners are saying, I'm personally in a really comfortable space right now. I'm for the first time in a while, I feel really happy about Man United.
I think it's a good thing. I think you've actually got some. It is a fresh start, but with the same manager. But you've got footballing people now making footballing decisions, and you look at Liverpool now that have brought in Hughes from Bournemouth and have got Edwards, and they've straight away said, Arne Slot's going to be the head coach. When you've got those sort of people behind you, it just makes your job a lot easier when you've got footballing people making footballing decisions, not Ed Woodward or accountants. And that's part of the reasons why Tottenham have never really been up there, because we've always had like Daniel Levy making footballing decisions. It's only like within the last year we've brought in Langer from Villa and made smart signings like Maddison and Van der Ven and Vicario and Udogie. Now we look like we've got an upward path. But I look at Man United now. If I was a United fan, I'd be happy. You're linked to some good players. Ugarte, question marks over for me, but Branthwaite, I think he'll be a top player at United. It's just now about bringing in the forwards and giving Ten Hag some actual backing now. That's like, I know he's brought in a lot of his players from the Eredivisie, like Malacia and Anthony and God knows what. But now you should theoretically be now pushing back into the Champions League. And let's be honest, the hierarchy of Man United, the goal is to win the league. That every goal in the top 6 clubs, like you said yesterday, their goal should be to win the league. So it's now about putting the steps in place to do that. So yeah,
do you know I find interesting what you said is backing the manager, because I sometimes think, again, with football fans, we can be very unsophisticated in how we perceive backing someone. Well, he's had his time.
What I would look at it is not spending the money. Like, you always spend money. This narrative that United are broke is just a myth. You've always spent money. You always will spend money. But it's not like you've overspent on a number of players. Anthony, for example, I think he was valued at £30 million. You went and chucked 100 million euros or whatever it was, or 80 million euros. It's about bringing in quality. And you start with, paying what you think is the right amount, not going overpaying, but bringing in quality players. And I think Branthwaite is the first step of the new beginning. Like, if you go and pay 100 million from 80 million, I think that's way over the top. But if you pay in around the 50, 60 million mark, I think that's a good buy.
I think as well, like, when you look at it, like, in terms of backing the manager, I think that we can quite clearly see that you should not be giving Ten Hag another penny. That's quite clear and obvious, because it's a shambles what he's done with some of the people he's brought in. But the good thing about it, and the encouraging thing, if I was a Manchester United fan, is that it doesn't look like they're going to do that and say, there you go, then go and spend another 200 million. We'll give you no advice into it. Where I think they'll back him is they'll actually welcome him and show him the love and respect to say, this is our plan. We're going to bring you in on it, and we are going to trust you and back you that you can deliver on the pitch. Now, don't get me wrong. If in 6 months' time you're sitting 12th in the league, then they might have to pull the plug. But they were actually going to give him the chance not to do that. And I think for me, that is backing him by saying, look, we're going to go together as a team and select these players that we believe can be in this style of play, and this is how we want to go. And I think together, if you're then brought on board, that is backing him. What is not backing him is basically what he's done before, which is to say, you're the manager, here's the money, go do what you want with it. Oh, it's not working now, and you get a load of stick for it. So for me, there's the difference of backing it for me, man. It's a little bit like Emery.
I agree. You know what I mean? I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. People always talk about, as a Man United fan, I've never bemoaned the amount of money we've spent. I've bemoaned how we've spent it
on 100%.
When I say that we're not backing managers, it's because we give head coaches managerial jobs and we let them run the club, and it's almost we give them too much power, too much anonymity, too much control, and that isn't backing them. I see it with children. There are some parents that believe, let your children decide everything they want to do, what they want to wear, even if it's crazy. And go to a wedding and they're wearing, I don't know, Wellington boots and a scuba diving kit. There are parents out there that would let their kid do it, and they believe, if I just let my kid have complete sovereignty, even as a 5-year-old, they'll grow up and understand boundaries. And it remains to be seen if that actually works. For me, I think sometimes you need to set boundaries. You need to support people. We've all got jobs in different areas. We've all worked in different places. your organization is not backing you if they're asking you to do something that you don't have the capabilities to do, even if you believe you can do it. They are setting you up for failure, and we've done that so regularly. That element I've always been sympathetic when it comes to Ten Hag. The one area why I thought maybe he does need to go is clearly there've been some fractured relationships with certain players, and can he recover that in time? And I mean, Varane's going. There was talks of them having issues. Casemiro looks like he's going to leave. There's talk about them having issues. There was a really strong report the other day that Rashford is going to seek a meeting with Ten Hag to repair some of the issues that they had. And what, again, this is more hope than it is fact right now. What I'm hoping when I read that is that players have realized the good old days of us getting what we want as players is finished. And I'm going to have to make amends with the manager because the manager's being backed. The head coach is being backed over us. Insubordination isn't going to be allowed at the club. That's something that Ineos and Ashworth and Barada need to fix, because I do believe our players have thrown multiple managers under the bus when they didn't want them there, or a section of players have sort of done that. And I think when you factor in all these areas, I think it's really important that we move forward in that way. And a new deal is so interesting because, yes, it's probably going to redefine his role. It's going to take away some responsibilities. I actually think Ten Hag, I think what he's already bought into is, I'm probably going to have less pressure. There's going to be pressure to deliver on the football pitch, but suddenly now my job is going to be coaching and telling a group of really qualified people, these are the types of players that we need. Go and find them for me. And then he can just sit back and focus on coaching. I don't think a lot of these head coaches realize when you walk into a mammoth like Man United and you have to run everything, I don't think they understand the volume of work that you have to do. I think it's a completely different kettle of fish. And a lot of them drown. And I think that for me has been ignored by Manchester United fans for the best part of a decade. And I'm so glad to see our owners sort of focus on that. I really, really do. Why is Terry dressed like a football hooligan? That is exceedingly xenophobic. That is exceedingly xenophobic to assess that millions and millions of England fans are all thugs. Most of us are not. There are some scumbags, but most of us are not. But I know you're joking as well, by the way. I know you're joking as well. But yeah, look, I'm happy with the links as well. Ugarte, a player I sort of did a lot of research into, and Chelsea were linked to him. And I thought when Chelsea looked like they were getting him, I thought, what a player they were bringing in. Someone that's got the sort of plays in a role of which I would like to see him in at Manchester United. Branthwaite, you mentioned, I think he's got the potential to be an absolute star in the right environment. And that's what I hope we start to create at Manchester United now. So if you look at those three names, Xerxes, Ugarte, Branthwaite, if that was our first three signings, manager gets a new deal. If we can, I mean, most of those signings probably will happen. Two of those signings are not probably going to happen until their nations leave the Copa America and the Euros, which I know we were speaking backstage. Fans have got to calm down a little bit. The reason that there's not much going on in terms of deals completing is it's hard to complete a transfer right now because most of these players are in camps and they can't leave. You know, you might see a little bit more when the knockout stages begin because there's days off. But at the moment, it's they play, they have a rest day, and then they're training for the next match. No, imagine how gutted you would be if you were from the Netherlands and Joshua Xerxes left for 24 hours to go and do a medical for Man United. You'd be, I mean, if an England player did that and left the camp for 20, you'd be disgusted. So I think football fans have got to calm themselves down over the speed of things. But yeah, I'm kind of happy with what we're doing.